first camera was when I had it when I was about 6 years old, and it's a long while ago, and it was a Kodak Brownie 127, which was a film camera, and in those days we had to buy film at the chemist's, and there we had to go take it to the chemist to be processed and developed, and that was my first camera. If I remember right, it was a Christmas present. I grew up in Munsley on the North Norfolk coast, and there used to be 2 or 3 of us mates. We all had cameras, and what we'd do was go out and take basically pictures of each other. There was a little bit of break when I was at school, because school took over everything else, and then when I left school it started again, and for my 21st birthday present, my wife bought me a Yashica 35W camera, which was my first 35mm camera. The film was much narrower, the 35mm, and used to do colour prints from that, and also used to take slides. When you developed the old film, you had to have, well, basically they call it a dark room, so it had the light had to be shaded out with a curtain drawn across the window and no light whatsoever, otherwise it affects the development and the print paper. And yes, it used to occupy the bathroom. Plenty of water there, but all the chemicals were in their separate trays anyway. Slides and transparencies overtook everything until about, let's say, the year 2000. And I used to belong to a camera club, and that was a really good place to learn photography from other people and speakers and everything else. And from there we learnt how to print and develop films, studio work, outside work, and it developed from there. It was at a club where one of my transparencies was picked to represent the club in a competition, and it actually got in and accepted, and that's where I really started on salons and international photography. Around about 2000 was the time when digital started to come in. Film cameras went out of the window and there was digital, which was in a way much easier. No development film or taking it to the chemist to be developed. You had your own screen, you processed your own pictures. Basically it's much cheaper. The way I approach taking a picture really hasn't changed. The thing that digital does, I find it may make you a bit lazy in that using film you tend to try and get it right in the camera first time, and that's it. With the digital camera you can just shoot 50 pictures of one scene and have a look at it and say which is the best one, which isn't the way I go about it, but it does tend to make you lazy that way. And I do try and make the digital exactly the same, and then it avoids what we call post-processing, which is using Photoshop on the screen. We use that to delete things like dust spots on the film and things like that, and making slight adjustments. But if you do it all in the camera first time, you don't have to bother to do that. Royal Photographic Society, East Anglian region, used to run a regional competition, and when I was in the Munsley Photographic Club, there were several members, and we used to submit entries. What we used to enter then were slides or transparencies, and it was then that I got my first acceptance, which started off, should we say, national and international exhibition. I do have 2 which are both done quite well in salons. One is called Refuge and the other is called The Chair, and they are both black and white images. In about 2009, 2010, when I'd had about 3,000 images on the photo library, and it was then that I had my first my first sale, which is a picture of Hickling Church. My favourite landscape areas are Norfolk Broads, North Norfolk, and of course Scotland for mountains and lochs. Within the landscape I do enjoy windmills, which is a big thing, and churches. I've got quite a large collection of Norfolk churches, which I think they're wonderful architecturally.
Right, we've arrived this morning at How Hill at Ludham to photograph a typical Norfolk windmill, and this is called Turf Fen Mill on the River Ant. I've had to look to try and get the best angle to photograph it from. There's quite a bit of boat traffic, so we'll try and get between the boat traffic. I found it should be quite good once the swash from the boats dies down, that we've got a bit of a reflection. And I'll try and do a large picture of the mill to more or less fill the frame, plus with the reflection. And we decided, or at least I've decided, to go to portrait mode. Another thing I always use is a cable release. This just stops any jarring or motion while I take the picture. Exposure, I always set my camera up to a small aperture f/16, so it's sharp from front to back, and it's on autofocus. I'll just take the shot, and this is a neutral density filter. The top half is 2 stops darker than the front, so it actually darkens the sky. And we will go for a nice landscape on this one. And what we'll do, I'll place the mill and the reflection this time on what they call on the position of thirds. So it's a third towards the end and a third up, which usually provides for not a bad composition. And the next thing to do is to check the exposure. Can't let the camera do it this time because of the dark sky. It would affect the exposure overall. So it's f11 at a 15th, and I'd have to now switch the camera to manual. Lovely. And leave it on autofocus, and it's now ready to take the picture. Here we are.